Palestinians who are living in extremely difficult conditions. You can't simply isolate yourselves and talk only about the Jews, because we are all internationalists, and we all must be equal. The Americans and the Russians and the Jews and the Palestinians all must be equal. That is the essence of the question. When General Dragunsky, who fought at the head of a tank brigade, and together with him 200,000 Soviet Jews who fought and who died at the front, 52 people, 52 Jews who were awarded the highest medal, the Gold Star, perished. This is their country. It is their land which is soaked with their blood. It is their land where many of their ancestors are buried and their parents shot by the Germans. It is right here that my parents' ashes rest. This is the country for which I fought. And the overwhelming majority of those here, for us, this is our homeland. As for Israel, let it exist. That's its problem. We have nothing against Israel as a state. We have nothing against those Jews who are living in Israel. But Soviet Jews who left earlier, the majority of them landed in New York and in Canada, and under 20% of them, less than 20%, remained in Israel. That is the real figure.
You know that?
Now, right now...
But that's their business. What do you care? What do you care?
I'm interested as to why you're so concerned about the fate of Soviet Jews. The Jewish Autonomous Oblast, for example, is one from which not a single Jew has ever left. They haven't emigrated. Not a single Jew from there has emigrated. They haven't gone to America, nor have they gone to Israel. But I've been in Harlem, I've been in the South Bronx, and I'd like to ask you a question. Why are you so concerned about the fate of Soviet Jews, and you're not concerned about the fate of those poor blacks? And because their existence is not merely deplorable, it's frightening. And there are poor Jews, too. What about Brighton Beach? Right now, our former citizens, Jews, are suffering. Many of them are hungry. You should be interested in that. And by the way, there are a lot of letters that are being sent to us, to the Jewish Autonomous Oblast, with requests for help in assisting them to return to our country. And we've spent a lot of time here on a question which is difficult for you to understand. You are simply taking what you'd like to see for reality. This is wishful thinking. And you're not really informed about the real situation in our country. We don't have to talk about them. We have our own problems. We would agree to meet with you once again if you seriously wanted to take a serious look at our lives and at reality here. But here, we haven't found anything useful or interesting in what you're saying.
I accept your statements that you are happy Jews, that you claim to be free to pursue your lives and your careers. You also feel you are not the victims of discrimination in the Soviet Union. I believe you. But I cannot be patient with your apparent anger at me for making an inquiry about the freedom of other Jews who wish to leave, especially when the evidence indicates that the only thing, in most cases, that is preventing them from emigration is their Jewishness. Now, please, I should not have to beg you for an understanding of my interest in this issue.
I don't understand. I was a good husband. I gave my wife everything she wanted.
I had nothing. I had a home, but no husband.
18 years of my life that company had. I was the best.
He'd go to lunch and never come back. I liked him, but...
Sometimes the last person to see an alcohol problem is the person who has the problem.
Why me? Why?
Beats me, pal.
Call Care Unit. We help more people stop using alcohol and drugs than any other hospital program.
Most sales on eyewear are on a limited selection of frames only. Lenses, that's extra. Oversized glasses, difficult prescriptions, that's extra too, but not at Montgomery Ward. At our optical department, you get a complete pair of single vision glasses for either $49, $69, or $89, depending on the frames. Satisfaction is guaranteed, and there are hundreds to choose from. So spend your time looking for the right glasses, not the right sale.
School bus driver Elaine Noyce talks about Alka-Seltzer Plus.
When I open these doors, in comes the cold, and the kids with all their sneezes and sniffles, and it's sure easy to catch what they've got. So when I get home, to take care of my stuffy head, my runny nose, my aches, my fever, Alka-Seltzer Plus really works. It makes me feel like, hi, like a great big hug.
In formal dress uniform, between the ages of 18 and 22, have been chosen by the Soviet Army Command to appear on an American talk show.
How did you feel when you received your notice that you were drafted? Yes.
Most of all, I miss my girlfriend who's at home. But I get letters from her. And sometimes she comes and visits me. We were planning to get married before the army, but we didn't have a chance to. And I'm planning to. I've been here only a month. I have 2 years left. And then, as soon as I get home, I'm planning to get married right away. I even have a letter I can show you that I just got.
Uh-huh. From your girlfriend?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Does she say she still loves you?
Yes, of course. And she's waiting for me.
And she promises not to see or socialize with other men while you are in the service.
No, she hasn't promised that. And I haven't asked that of her.
You're not worried?
No.
If your country calls a war, do you have to go? What if in your conscience you feel the war is an immoral decision? Yes.
Soviet person, first and foremost, is sure of the morrow. And we here in the Soviet Army, we're confident regarding our people and our government can be sure of us. We ourselves choose our leaders, and we have the same rights as all people on our earth. And we share all of the ideas and intentions of our governments in the same way as they show concern for us and all people in our country.
When Americans talk about war, they imagine that if it happens, and they all hope that it doesn't, it would probably be with the Soviet Union, with you. Does that surprise you?
Yes, that does surprise me. Why do they think that?
Because they see the size of your army, they see the size of your missiles, they see what they believe to be is advancements of military personnel in other nations of the earth, and they wonder about your intentions.
That the entire history of the development of Soviet armed forces have shown the reverse, that the Soviet Union and Soviet armed forces will never be the first to start a war. And if you take a look, the first atom bomb, the first neutron bomb, in what country were those developed and created? Take a look at the most recent documents of our government, our appeals and our statements regarding the cessation of nuclear explosions, of non-use of nuclear weapons. That is, our country is trying to see to it that there is peace on earth. How would you answer that?
Gentlemen, my purpose is not to argue with you. But please know that some Americans see Soviet military policy as what we call expansionist. They see Soviet military crackdowns in Poland, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, Angola, and other places. Would you care to comment on that?
You said that our troops, that Soviet troops occupied Afghanistan, Poland. And tell me, why then did American troops occupy Grenada? Why then isn't the American President Ronald Reagan answering our peaceful initiatives? Why isn't he answering our nuclear moratorium? For 18 months now, our country has not had any nuclear explosions. However, on the testing grounds in Nevada on the 5th of February, there are plans for a new nuclear explosion. And in addition, you assert that we are not a peace-loving country.
Excuse me, I did not say that. I don't mean to suggest that you're not a peace-loving country. I do mean to suggest that it isn't fair to say that you are a peace-loving country and that we are not. And that for every piece of evidence that we are aggressive, we offer to you equal amounts of evidence that you are aggressive.
И на каждый пример нашей агрессивности мы можем выдвинуть аналогичный пример агрессивности с вашей стороны.
So we are in an endless verbal chess match. Yes, this down here. Yes.
Mr. Donahue, why do you think that the presence of a Soviet military contingent in Afghanistan is an invasion of Afghanistan? Or an occupation of that country, as you put it? Soviet troops are in Afghanistan on the request of the Afghan government. Afghanistan is the first country which concluded a peace treaty with our country in 1917. The Soviet Union is assisting the Afghan people in its struggle against illiteracy, with hunger, and it is rendering assistance to the people.
Please tell me honestly, do you think that American men your age want to go to war with you?
I think that they don't want to fight with us, because nobody wants to have tragedy strike his own home and the members of his family, and war always involves that. There has been no war yet on the territory of America itself in recent times, and we had that war, World War II. And our people is all too familiar with the results of war, with the kind of grief and tragedy that war brings to each and every house. I think that Americans are perfectly well aware of that. I'd like to say that probably in your army, men are probably the same age as in our army, kids of about the same age. And I think that a soldier, first and foremost, doesn't want war, because the soldier is going to be the first person to be involved in that war and who's going to have to give his life in it. So I think that both our soldiers and your soldiers, the military soldiers, first of all, are those who don't want war.
Yes. Yes.
I would like this program which you're filming now, this program in which you're going to be showing to your American audience. I'd like you to do everything in your power to see to it that the American people understands only one thing, that we want to live with them in peace and friendship. I think that's the most important thing that I want to say, and that I think every soldier wants to say. The most important thing is that the problem of a war should never occur between our countries. Our countries should live in peace and friendship, and there should always be normal business-like relations between our countries.
Give us you're tired, you're weary, you're overworked business traveler yearning to be comfortable. AirCal 737 Executive Class Service welcomes you with exclusive luxuries throughout the plane, like first-class legroom and a variety of superior snacks and meals. Even telephone service and premium wines are available. AirCal welcomes you with new luxury at ordinary coach prices. AirCal 737 Executive Class Service. We make flying easy.
Hormel wants to show you 2 highly acclaimed recipes for chili. Here is Herb Greeby's recipe, which takes 36 hours to prepare. I'm told it's positively delicious. The second recipe requires an opener, a pan, and a can of Hormel chili. And many people prefer this recipe to that one, which leads us to say that in some cases, Hormel might not be the next best thing to homemade. In some cases, it might be better. Hormel chili, the next best thing to homemade.
What's you?
Oh, miserable cold. Neocitrin is strong medicine for that nasty cold. It's hot and lemony, too. You'll feel better real soon.
New Neocitrin cold medicine. A little warmth for your miserable cold.
For gas pain and bloated feeling, Gas X has the fastest relief ingredient. Look, gas bubbles. Add the leading antacid, add Gas X. See how Gas X gets rid of the gas. Gas X has the fastest reliever for your gas pain and bloated feeling.
If you think all cherry pies look this flat, look at this pie. If this is what you call cherries, it's only because you haven't tasted cherries like this. This is a Mrs. Smith's natural juice pie with a crust that's tender, flaky, and downright bumpy because it's bursting with cherries. Cherries that bake up in their own natural juice. That's no ordinary pie. That's Mrs. Smith's natural juice pie. It's in a class by itself.
We are en route to Chernobyl, site of the worst nuclear accident in history. This is a 3-hour motor trip from Kiev on well-plowed roads. The temperature is below zero. Our first stop is a relocation center, hastily constructed after the accident to house workers at the damaged plant. The center is outside the so-called danger zone. I am accompanied by Dr. Robert Gale, the UCLA physician who performed bone marrow transplants on several accident victims. At the relocation center, we are checked for radiation.
There seem to be 6,000 workers. They're brought here every 2 weeks from Kiev. They work here for 2 weeks. They're monitored. And then they return. They come here without their families. I'm told that they've built this city in about 3 months after the accident occurred.
So the workers spend 2 weeks here, then go home and spend 2 weeks in Kiev, and then alternate backwards.
I suppose that when they reach a certain dose, a certain maximum dose that we would consider unsafe, then they no longer come back.
So everybody who deals with the nuclear commercial power plant must face the possibility of literally erecting new cities in the event of an accident.
It's clearly not only a possibility, but it's already happened here. So it's something we have to consider.
We are back on the road to Chernobyl. As we move closer to the plant, ghost towns appear along the roadside. Once bustling villages are now empty, silent, lifeless. It is late afternoon when we reach our destination. We are introduced to the plant engineer who reviews the work done following the accident, assures us everything is now under control, and invites me to visit the control room. I decline, saying I promised my wife I wouldn't do that. The Soviets are disappointed, but accept my decision. This is Chernobyl. You see a dark superstructure to the left of the smokestack. It looks like a large industrial garage. That is the unit that blew last April. Do you have any idea when it might be possible for citizens to actually live with families and schools in this neighborhood?
I think in these towns, in Pripyat and Chernobyl, the likelihood of them being occupied before the end of this century is probably very small. Many of the other towns will be reoccupied, maybe even before the end of the year. But I think the precise damage that's done here, how long it will take to, for example, reconstitute this forest is an unknown, and will be an unknown for a number of years.
Speaking of the forest in this area is brown.
This is a direct effect of the explosion. These kinds of trees are particularly sensitive to damage of this type. And
Are they dead? Are they gone? Will they not regenerate?
They are dead. The Soviets have decided to leave them where they are. They've debated whether to defoliate them, and they've decided to leave them as they are. these kinds of trees even have radioactive bark, for example.
We also saw, and that will remain for how long in your guess?
Well, for many, many years. Remember that the half-life of cesium is 30 years, and it takes about 10 half-lives or 300 years for something to be really gone.
We also saw a good deal of excavation as we came in. This is an effort, as I understand it, to remove whatever radioactive particulate matter may rest on the surface. This is a little bit like trying to scrape cigarette ashes from the top of a cake. Only in this case, the cake is several thousand square miles in area.
That's right.
This looks like a losing operation.
I'm not sure it's a losing operation. They are taking about 10 centimeters off the surface of the soil and depositing it over here near the some of the reactor units. And I think the indications we have are that the local levels of radiation are going down to quite acceptable levels, and you see people are working here. Now, whether you can really totally get this place back to normal, I'd say is very unlikely. It's very, very unlikely, and I think there's a certain sadness which we all experienced in driving through these. I myself was very sad to drive through these towns that we had flown over by helicopter and see them just devoid of human life.
We see I assume this is the Pripyat River.
This is one of the channels that leads into the river.
Now, with rainfall and snow melt-off, this must be a contaminated body of water.
Well, it's what they've done is to build dikes around, very deep dikes, 30 meters deep, around the perimeter of this. Now, one of the reasons that they haven't brought people back into this area is because there's a very heavy snowfall this year. And when this snow melts, there's going to be a big wash-off, and naturally that's going to cause problems. And so I think they're waiting to see what the level of that is before they do anything. It is going to be a problem. I think they're willing to admit that.
There are 31 deaths as a result of this accident as we speak. Is that so?
That's correct.
How many deaths do you anticipate will be the direct result of this accident?
It's a very difficult figure to calculate and to calculate accurately. We have speculated, and I think the Soviets would probably agree with us at this point, that there will be something between, let's say, 5 and 75,000 excess cancers occurring all over the world in the next 50 years. Now that's in a background of about 600 million. So normally there'll be 600 million, and there'll be these many more. So in a certain way, if we look at the percentage, it's very small, but if we consider that each of these is a human life, then clearly it's a tragedy.
This appears to add up to the inevitable conclusion that the genie is out of the bottle and that the genie is destined to win any bargain that we might attempt to make with it. And so I am moved to ask you, as a radiation expert and as a responsible physician and as a family man, what do you say about the appropriateness of the exploitation of commercial nuclear power generation?
Well, it's a difficult question. It's very difficult when you're standing next to the world's greatest nuclear reactor accident. I'll try to be brief. Let me just say that, number one, we in the States have to accept that we live in a nuclear world. The Soviets in Washington, when I appeared before the Senate last week, said that by the year 2000, they're going to get half of their electricity from nuclear sources. So whether we pursue it or not, we're going to live in a nuclear age. South America, Africa. Now, is it worthwhile risk for ourselves? I think we have to educate the public as to the risks of this form of energy, which I think they understand to some extent. We've got to educate them as to the risks of other forms of energy, the risks of coal, the risks of oil. And then we in a democracy have to decide, do we want to accept these risks or don't we? We should know, though, that the rest of the world is charging ahead. And so that at least the 100 power stations that we have are probably going to continue to operate, and we better learn whatever lessons we can from Chernobyl.
So you are not able, then, to bring your own personal endorsement to a cessation of nuclear power generation?
I'm trying to approach this in a rational way. I'm trying to say that every source of energy has its price. the price of nuclear energy is very low when it's operating normally. Then we come to a disaster like this. The price of coal, for example, is very high normally, but it's predictable. And in a free society, we have to decide which of those risks do we want to accept.
Much has been said about the antiquated construction of the Chernobyl plant. It was built without a containment structure. Newer design technology makes it more likely that radiation would be contained in the event of a meltdown. But there are no guarantees. No guarantees against escaping radiation. No guarantees against sabotage, terrorism, earthquakes. And we're still not sure what to do with the waste. And while we're here,
with this fond farewell to the most enduring entertainer of our time, for 40 years, Liberace bewildered, astonished, delighted us. People takes you through his life, every glittering step of the way. It's a perfect People report. Also in People, how to order the exciting 120-page Hollywood history issue. Week after week, People celebrates People. This week, Arrivederci, Liberace.
More pecani sauce. This ain't Paste pecani sauce.
And you ain't Burt Reynolds.
But Paste is made with your fresh vegetables and spices by folks in San Antonio. This stuff is made in New York City.
New York! Darling, we're gonna have to shut you down.
Pick up the original. Pick up the Paste.
The people and events that make a difference to your life. The Channel 7 News team brings your first complete look at the news of the day. That makes Channel 7 News a 5 o'clock tradition.
Meet some all-American tough guys. Guys like Sylvester Stallone, fitness king Jack LaLanne, and wrestling greats Adrian, Adonis, and Jimmy Hart. We'll meet them all tomorrow at 9.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following. The Drake offers an exciting weekend in New York at a special price. The only Swiss hotel on Park Avenue. For reservations, call 800-DRAKE-NEW YORK or 212-421-0900.
We have in the United States over 1 million teenage girls who get pregnant every year.
A look at a crisis in teen pregnancies.
You really don't think of the consequences until they happen.
It's not something that human beings can do for free. There are costs.
I've grown up quite a bit.
Cheryl Jennings focuses on teen sex. Is it out of control? Tonight at 11.